Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I tend to agree with Senator King's comments about us trying to project expectations for the society we have here in other parts of the world. But I also have to say that with half of the nearly 39 million people who live in Afghanistan being under the age of 19, they've seen a very different opportunity than generations before them in Afghanistan. And I think the number is somewhere around 60%, just below 70% are under the age of 25. So to the people who served there, I think it's important to think that we've sowed a seed that may give them an opportunity after the current conflict resolves itself and the almost impossible to assume otherwise a civil war that's going to occur there in the coming years. I've heard the 2,500 number discussed in the prior hearing and this hearing, and I just want to see if I can get agreement with you all on what the real number is. We heard General Miller a few weeks ago and General Milley and General McKenzie this week say that the 2,500 were fighters. You know then that there's going to be some logistical tail to support those fighters. You heard General Milley say that depending upon circumstances, they would probably have to have a surge capacity of another 3,500. But what hasn't been talked about is the unusual situation where our NATO allies and partners were talking about another 6,000. So the number is really 8,000 to 10,000 dispersed across the country, not only with fighters, but also with intelligence assets and other strike capabilities. And to use General Miller's term, he believed, with the advice that he got from people in forward positions, that that would be a sufficient number to put the hands on the shoulders of the Afghan national forces and probably keep a reasonably stable environment. Would you all agree with those numbers? We're not talking about 2,500. We're talking about something between 8,000 and 9,500 that would be in country to stabilize the situation?
Senator, that sounds accurate. The only thing I'll say is for years we haven't been able to get reliable public numbers out of the Defense Department about what the forces actually look like in Afghanistan, so I can't say with certainty that that's right, but that sounds about right. And I don't think when you say put a hand on the shoulder of the Afghan security forces, what that number would have done, that platform would have done, it would have prevented it would not have turned the situation around. It would not have won the war. What it would have done would probably prevented how quickly we saw the collapse. It probably would have done that. I think you would have seen Afghan forces would have fought in different parts of the country to keep the country under the control of the government in a better way, especially if they had the logistical air support. But it obviously wasn't going to win the war.
Yeah. Well, and incidentally, I was against the Doha Agreement in the prior administration. We heard General Milley testify that it was clear last year that the Taliban were not living up to the spirit or the letter of the agreement. President Biden had to know that when he was making a campaign promise to move forward with the withdrawal. It would just seem to me, and I don't buy the argument that the only reason that we moved forward with the withdrawal was because it was a prior agreement, because we've seen reversals of other decisions made by the prior administration. But it would just seem to me that even if the ultimate goal was to exit Afghanistan or to potentially exit but maintain a diplomatic presence, that if the administration had listened to the advice of at least some people with extensive experience on the ground in Afghanistan, that you could have reset and said, we actually meant that the terms of the Doha Agreement had to be satisfied. We meant that the Taliban had to work with the Afghan government for some sort of a peaceful transition. And we just simply got so focused on exiting that we did so at the expense of 13 military personnel and what I believe will be thousands of people who were left behind. The last question is on over the horizon. You know, and I think Senator King said that he's not sure that, I think you said that maybe over the horizon is being oversold. If we really believed with the issues of the air corridors and the lack of reliance or the lack of credibility with the Pakistani government, if we believe that we can conduct counterterrorism and intelligence missions over the horizon in Afghanistan, a landlocked country with very, very narrow corridors to execute, why wouldn't we withdraw from any other dangerous place in the world where we have a coast and we have air pathways. Why wouldn't that be the logical conclusion you would draw? If you can do it in Afghanistan, then you can do it in Somalia and another dangerous place where we think we need to be there to maintain assets, to protect the homeland and U.S. interest. Why wouldn't that be the logical conclusion?
No, it would be the logical conclusion, Senator. And the bottom line is, every time we've talked to the military over the last 15 years or whatever it was, talk about over the horizon was always problematic. It wasn't necessarily a good thing. Afghanistan is going to be even more problematic in a lot of ways. Just on the Doha agreement real quick, I was very loudly critical of that as early as 2018, and then again in 2019. You can Google me and Google the Doha agreement. I laid it all out for everybody very quickly what was going to happen. There's another part of the Doha agreement that I think you, Senator, should pay attention to, which is, I don't have it in front of me, but Section 1F of the agreement actually prevents the U.S. from using military force in Afghanistan. And so if the U.S. says that this agreement is binding and in effect, the Taliban will say, well, therefore, you cannot then use any kind of force in Afghanistan. And in fact, just yesterday, the Taliban released a statement in English saying that the flying of U.S. drones over Afghan airspace was a violation of the Doha agreement. They actually, when Secretary Austin said that the Haqqanis, including Sergio Haqqani, he implied that he could still be targeted by the U.S., the Taliban came out and said, no, the Doha agreement says you can't target him, that actually he's protected by the Doha agreement, which means, in effect, the Doha agreement, if we accept that reading, is protecting al-Qaeda.
Thank you, Senator Tillis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Warren, please.